We have some hot topics for you today, and I'm going to first introduce my co-host, and then we're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to introduce Kiana Evans, who will talk to us about something that you all should know about and about protecting things that you do creatively. So, here are my co-hosts.
Good morning, Tamika Ashford, Public Relations Consultant for the Ashford Agency.
Good morning, Cheryl Ajmu, CEO and founder of the Ajmu Group. We produce the Multicultural Media Luncheon during the Detroit Auto Show.
Good morning. I'm Ken Coleman, Detroit based author and historian.
Yeah, Detroit-based author, and as we do every Friday, he wrote this book. On this day in African American life in Detroit, we have the author here again. On this day in 1965, they don't remember it, but I sure do. In worldwide wrestling action, Bobo Brazil, I bet some of you remember Bobo Brazil, I do, crushes Jerry Graham in a match held at Cobo Arena. Born Houston Harris in Little Rock, Arkansas, Brazil is widely considered one of the first successful African American professional wrestlers and also is often referred to as the Jackie Robinson of the sport. The thing about it is he was tough in the ring, but when he'd be interviewed, he was just the nicest guy. God rest his soul. I remember Bozo Brazil. And it's Bobo. Did I say?
Yeah, you did.
He's,
I
he's going to
did.
come back and get you.
I am sorry. Don't, Bobo. It was all in good faith. We're going to go to Kiana Evans in just a second. We're going to have her sit right here next to me. And we'll take a real quick 30-second break, and we'll be back in a second. Good morning, Kiana.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here today.
Oh, thank you for coming. Now tell me, um, you're you're in law school, right?
That is correct.
And what are you studying?
I am studying intellectual property law at University of Detroit Mercy School of Law, downtown Detroit.
Well, that's very important to people like me. I'm an author, so is Ken, and so forth. And Cheryl does so much creatively. And this is a very important conference that it's World Intellectual Property Day 2015. And this year's theme is copyrights in music.
Yes, that's correct.
Can we tell people? People are always asking me about copyrights. Can you tell them what that is?
Basically, copyright is the idea of protecting your work. So anything through song, music, paintings, even dance choreography, you want to get that protected, your work protected, and it's very, very important.
I'm a poet, and I've written several books. And then one day I heard about somebody using my poetry within their play.
That is, yep.
And I, I always copyright everything I think I have is copywritten. But tell me this: what if I'm not a singer or a musician? Can I still come down to this?
Yes, you can still come down to this event that we're having this Thursday, April 23rd, at the Charles H. Wright African American Museum. It is a free event from 3 to 10 o'clock p.m. From 3 to 5, there will be information about trademarks. So those people who are out there who may have
Okay, let's talk about trademarks real quick. Because Cheryl, you have a trademark.
I
don't you?
do. The Multicultural Media Luncheon is trademarked.
What qualifies something to be trademarked?
what qualifies something to be trademark is basically anything that deals with a logo or maybe phrase or a saying that you might use, like Detroit versus everybody. That's a particular trademark here that we all know. So that is something that needs to be protected so that you don't have people infringing on your creative thought and on
Right,
work.
right.
So basically, this Thursday, again, from 3 to 10 o'clock, from 3 to 5, we'll have a copyright attorneys there as well as the trademark attorneys at the event, and then we'll take a break around from 5 to 6, and then from 6 to 8:30 we have information from well-known entertainment attorneys. Howard Hertz, he's a very well-known entertainment attorney
Wow.
here in Detroit, Michigan. He's
Wow.
represented Eminem. He will be one of the keynote speakers. We also have one of a famous musician, Ralph Armstrong.
He's a friend of the show, been on the show.
Yes, he's going to talk about some of his own copyright issues and concerns.
Right.
And then we have also other local IP attorneys in the metropolitan Detroit area that will be there.
And that break that you take from 5 to 6, that's going to be about mixing and mingle, talking to people, because
Exactly.
you may run into people with issues that you had. Ken, did you have any questions?
What impact has social media had on intellectual property? Now everybody's got a Facebook page and Instagram and YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, you do have some what we consider common law rights in your work because it's actually out there. However, it's important that you do register your work with the United States Patent and Trademark Office as well as the Copyright Office, so that if there are any issues, you can actually go to court and actually
Have
sue.
recourse.
Right, and
So
receive
you're
some kind of
saying-
recourse.
Not just copyright, but patent?
Patents as well. There will be some patent attorneys. I'm personally, I'm practicing in patent law currently right now at in a local firm here in Troy, Michigan. So yeah, it's definitely, we're going to deal with all intellectual property, which is patents, trademarks, as well as copyrights.
Tell the audience what a patent is, because a lot of people think that they have a patent on something.
Basically, a patent is any type of invention that you might come up with. Let's say if you designed a new way of a new pen or something, that would be patented.
Is it more or less physical property?
It's some physical property as
Real
well
property.
as some they're what we call system or method ideas. So maybe sometimes you can patent like a program, a computer program. So we do some what we call software patents as well.
Like apps?
Like apps, yes, and things like that. Yeah.
Wow.
So
There's
it's
so much.
Yeah, there's so much. I think that a lot of times it's unfortunate that, and what I'm so passionate about this particular area of law is that you come up with so many different creative ideas, but people don't know their rights. And it's important that people learn and know what is protected, know their rights in their intellectual property, because even though it's not real, you can't touch it, it's still something that needs to be protected because it's intangible.
What about a lyricist who writes music? Because I've had singers or musicians tell me, I'd love to put your poetry to music.
Yes, lyricists, songwriters, choreographers, as I was saying before, photography. These people or those that are interested in those areas of creativity should come down to
And
this.
with photography, like you can prevent people from just using your...
Just from using your work. Yeah, I mean it's very, very important that we understand the importance of protection. I mean we just recently heard in the media, in the news, about
Marvin Gaye,
Marvin Gaye,
Blurred Lines.
the Blurred Lines, and it's and just that.
I still don't think it sounded that much.
I do.
I,
Well,
in my
Well, the
opinion,
judge did, so.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but,
yeah, the judge. Who is he? No, but anyway.
but yeah, even in that case, I mean, your protection, your protecting your work, it goes from, especially in copyright, it goes from your life plus 95 years. So that includes not only the life of you living, but also your heirs. So it's important to protect your work. And that's why this event on April 23rd at the Charles H. Wright African American Museum is so important that people come out and just learn about protection and protecting their work and protecting the different things that they put to paper or to music and things like that.
Jeez. Well, this is, once again, this is next week.
Yes.
Thursday, April 23rd, and it begins at what time? Again, 3 p.m.?
It starts at 3 p.m. So again, from 3 to 5, we'll have some local attorneys to come out to discuss more so trademark and how to copyright your work, which is a very simple process.
So simple, you could do it online.
You can do it
now.
online. It's
I
very
used to just have to mail out stuff, but you can do it online.
Yes, it's so simple. So that will be from 3 to 5, and again, as you were saying, from 5 to 6, we'll have a break. You can network with some of the attorneys there, network with some of the other people that may
That's
be
great.
there, and then also from 6 to 10 p.m. there will be a presentation as well as a panel just like this to discuss more about copyright issues, and you can ask questions and
This
things
is
like
great.
that. This is a great
Yeah.
event for the city of Detroit, and this is our third event for the World Intellectual Property Day.
Gee, because people can steal your stuff.
Yes. Oh, yes, yes, yes.
And they do.
And they do.
Yeah,
Exactly.
they do.
Exactly.
Well, Kiana, we got to talk more, girl. Listen, I'm probably trying to have you back on my
Okay, awesome.
my
I'll be
other
honored.
show, so I could have more time to talk to you and everything. And uh, best wishes on this. I think I'm going to have to get to this event. I think it's important.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's important. So, ladies and gentlemen, next Thursday, the 23rd, at the museum, Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, 3 o'clock. Be there or be square. And we will see you then. And
Yes.
thank you so much
Thank
for
you
coming.
for having me.
We'll be back in just a moment with your Table Talk topic. We are back, and we're going to go through our topics. We're going to go through some kind of quickly, and other ones we're not going to go through at quite as fast. But we all know that Hillary Clinton is running for president. I think she's been running a long time.
Yeah.
Yes, her whole life.
Yes.
She's been running her
At least
whole
20
life.
years.
Yeah, I think her whole life.
Isn't it weird how Scandal has picked up on this? But anyway,
Yeah.
the TV show. But a woman has said that a woman shouldn't be president. This woman, I think she was out of Texas or something. Yes, Dallas, said that a woman shouldn't be president. Said there's a biblical reason. I don't know what that is, but she says that is. Let's quickly speak to that. Wouldn't, Ken, you're a man, very obviously. What do you think?
We have reached, and it happens earlier and earlier in presidential election cycles. We have reached what a lot of us politicos call officially the silly season. And so what happens is you will see stories like this pop up, sometimes weekly, and as we get closer to election 2016, almost daily. Social media, as we talked about how it's affecting intellectual property, is affecting the news cycle in tremendous ways, Tamika, you know that. And so you'll see a lot more of this stuff, but it is absolutely silly. I mean, of course a woman can be president.
Yeah, I don't know. First a black man president, then a woman. What we gonna do? I mean, I'm not saying she'd win, but in case, what do you
And
think?
then just to kind of piggyback on what Ken was saying, I was very surprised to see that this Dallas media outlet could not find a more credible source. I mean, you really have to do a lot of deep diving to find someone on Facebook. And who is she anyway? I mean, she made a comment. I think people make comments every day on social media. So what really validates that? And so again, I'm piggybacking. This is the silly season because it must have been a very slow news cycle to cite this source.
Okay, along with that, what do you think of her candidacy?
Well, again, I think that she's been running for the past 20 plus years since her husband was in office. And so I don't think it's any surprise. I think that it was a matter of, I think maybe she has some health challenges. Ken, maybe you could speak to that. But I think it was a matter of, could she have the physical endurance
Yeah,
to go
'cause
through
she
the
had gotten
race?
sick,
Yeah.
I think, last time.
Yeah,
was
but
sick.
everybody gets sick and then they get
Yeah,
well.
but
Well, there's a lot of conversation about the type of money, and the other thing that we talk about in addition to the silly season is how expensive it gets in presidential campaigns.
Isn't it amazing? They're talking about $1 billion.
Well, what they're actually talking about is Hillary in terms of hard money and in kind money, resources, $2.5 billion in all, and just all the energy that'll be around a Hillary Clinton presidency. She will be challenged, it appears, but it doesn't look like she'll be challenged by anyone who has, at least out of the gate, the name ID that she has.
Except Elizabeth Warren. If she,
Yeah,
she's
but
but I don't think
Elizabeth
she's not
Warren, we spoke
Yeah.
about her last week. She will not, she is so liberal to the point their chances, well, she says she's not going to get in anyway. I mean, she's not going to get in the race anyway. And a lot of people want her because she is definitely for the working man, the way she comes across. But I don't think she'll do it. I think she's way too liberal for her to get the nomination.
I predict Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton. I think that Daddy Bush has wanted both of his sons to serve as president. I think this has been in the making since he was vice president during the Reagan administration. So, again, I wouldn't be surprised to see Bush and
Clinton.
Clinton.
The 90s all over again.
Absolutely. History
Deja
repeating
vu.
its deja vu.
So, Cheryl, you were saying something about Elizabeth Warren?
Oh, I was just saying that, if she were to get in the race, I think it would, definitely change. It would split up a lot of people because I think she seems more relatable. I remember recently they were saying something about Hillary Clinton was buying a burrito at Chipotle or something like
Chipotle.
that. Yeah, and they were like, how
Chipotle.
realistic is that? Is she, is she
hasn't had to
doing
do that
this?
in the last 20
yeah,
years, too
is
much.
she
Photo
really-
op.
Has she
or
driven a
something.
car?
Yeah.
Has she been anywhere without
Right.
Secret Service?
I think Elizabeth Warren is more relatable for people, and she's very passionate. You can tell that she's very passionate.
She doesn't
about
back down.
Yeah, she's gonna if it's something, she's gonna right that wrong. She is about justice, and Hillary is too. But the passion is not the same. The
But
passion
here's
is
the
not the
thing.
same.
I'm thinking back to 1992 or whenever, and she really tried to get through that health care. She really did, and they downed her. The way they talked about, if you go back, and the way they talked about Hillary, it was ridiculous.
Well, it's going to happen again, Brenda. I mean, what happens obviously in this cycle that we're in, everything from the 90s comes back up. It's just not that. It's Vince Foster,
Vince
it's
Foster,
Whitewater,
right.
all these terms and phrases and
Right.
people that we haven't talked about in 20 years. We're going to talk about them again, and probably even more so because in 2008 you had the rock star sort of atmosphere around Barack Obama, and I think it overshadowed Hillary a little bit. Now she's, at least today, particularly if Senator Warren doesn't run, she's
Right.
She's the nominee. It's hers to lose. At least the conventional
the
wisdom
inevitable.
is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, anything can happen. Now she could trip up. We could get an
I
unknown
agree.
candidate. We could get a third party candidate. So right now she looks like the conventional wisdom says she will certainly make a strong run for the nominee, but it's still early.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Boy, I don't know. I'm just thinking about it all because I've seen such a barrage against her. I mean, it's like, to me, the Republican nominees need to be worried about each other.
Well, certainly there are a lot more people in the Republican field, and so I think each one of those presumptive nominees and the people that have announced have some cover because there's 5 or 6 other people that you can talk about. But best believe, even when you listen to conservative radio, people like Rush Limbaugh, stay with me though. Jeb Bush is getting as much heat on issues as
Right.
Hillary Clinton is.
Right.
We tend to, because I think for the most part in our community, we tend to be Democratic and vote that way. But best believe, there are people jumping on Jeb Bush on the other
I
side of
have
the aisle
seen that.
every day of the week.
Well, I really want to talk about this next issue. The young man, the older gentleman who shot the young man, Eric Harris. He shot him. He claims he thought he took out his taser.
Have you heard that audio for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you?
Yes.
What
It
did you
just
think?
it seemed like it wasn't much concern. He was just like, "Oh, I shot you. I'm sorry." I
Right.
was like, it wasn't any screaming. Oh my God, It was like, oh, I'm sorry, I shot you. It just makes me think, was there really any concern for this, man?
Right. Can't.
We have continually talked about this situation.
can't
over the
help
last
it
couple of
because
years
something comes up.
it continues to happen, and it's very scary. I'm 47 now, and the gray hair shows it. And there was a time
gray
when
hair.
somebody, it's nice here. There was a time when someone said a 73-year-old police reserve or volunteer or whatever would have shocked me, and the first thing I would have said was, "What is a 73-year-old person out there doing in a law enforcement situation?" I say all that to make sure that people don't call and write and call me, accuse me of ageism. But I am a little concerned about a 73-year-old working in a law enforcement capacity. Now, I think there's some things that 73-year-old people can do, and I hope that God gives me the long life to live to be
And the
73
fortitude.
and to run marathons. But I don't know that being a law enforcement officer is something that somebody that age should be doing.
Right, and have access to a gun.
Yeah.
Didn't go through the amount of training, and that's the other piece that they're saying, that some of his so-called training was fast-tracked, and it wasn't so. But what got me was this morning, I just happened to see him on the Today Show. Did anyone else see
Didn't see
him?
it.
No.
No.
It was the gentleman, the 73-year-old man, being interviewed by Matt Lauer. First, I have a problem with them giving him this time. He had his lawyer to one side, his wife to another side, his kids behind him. And he's saying, well, that can happen to anybody. It's, a mistake and this and that. It was a mistake, and I was really regretting it. And Matt Lauer said, well, how did you feel? And I was really regretting it. I'm sitting up, getting ready to throw something and break my own television.
Like it was being late for
I'm
for
telling
a
you.
coffee
But
appointment.
here was the other point, everybody. They said, where do you keep your taser? Right in here. Where do you keep the gun? Right down here.
But again, as I've stated on previous shows, America gives a platform for a person such as this to, give their plea. And so how is this okay? I mean, he had a major media outlet to give him
Yeah.
one of the
Give him a
largest,
platform. Yeah.
to tell his side of the story. And what about the victim, and what about the victim's family? Will there be the same platform for them?
But the thing is, they made him feel like, it was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm so sorry this happened, this, that, and the other thing. This man, there was a long distance between the vest pocket.
It was not an accident. It was not an accident.
And if
Yeah.
you're 73, not knowing, not saying that he's
Why
gone
I know
crazy.
it was not an accident. I mean, I'm not in law enforcement, but it's my understanding, even with that training, even if you're at the tail end or the back end of your career, just some things, your instincts kick in, and when you're pulling your gun, and when you're pulling the taser. And so, if you've been pulling, or I just find it hard
And he
to
was
believe that
already
you got
on the
it mixed
ground.
up.
He was
Right.
already
Yeah.
on the ground.
I just
So-
think, sorry, Charlotte.
Yeah.
I just think if this gentleman wants to volunteer and wants to play a role, let's find a desk job for him. I mean, and I'm not saying that that's the reason why.
But he didn't want that.
But
and it seems like he
I-
paid for that.
Well, I mean, we want and don't want a lot of things. I mean,
And they said he's given
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit of money
See,
well,
he
to
paid for
the
that.
sheriff.
He
and
paid
to
for
the
that.
police.
There is the Metro Times did a story a few weeks ago about a small Michigan town where they have the law enforcement chief there has recruited because of financial situations has recruited basically a volunteer force, and a lot of these people are people that are friends and contributors and all that stuff. And we better take a strong look at some of this stuff. I know particularly in our metropolitan area, we've got some very challenged cities economically. I don't know that volunteering for in a law enforcement capacity, police and fire is where we ought to be going with this. And again, definitely not a 73-year-old. I'm sorry.
Right. I agree. I'm not near 70, but gee, I wouldn't be a cop. I wouldn't volunteer for that. But it's just I wouldn't have the response. All of that, the response time. And this man couldn't tell the difference between a vest pocket and a pants.
I still believe he knew the difference.
I
Yeah,
think
I
so.
think
I hate
so.
to say it, but I do think so also.
There's people 70 in their 70s that carry. So I just find that hard to believe
Yeah.
that he could not tell the difference.
It's that video again. If we didn't have that video, what would they say? He tried to reach for my
Yep.
while he was laying on the ground. Another one.
Felt threatened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the standard. That's right. I felt threatened, and so.
And you all weren't on last week, but Ryan was on my son, and he said that because he has to drive rurally too for his job. He said that when he is stopped, he automatically turns on his recording device on his phone.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
So that he can record everything that's happening.
Yeah. That's standard now. I
It's
think
the
everybody
world.
should do
It's
it.
the world in which we live.
And in a way, that's a good world, in a way, because how are you going to shoot someone in the back?
But as
If
again,
we didn't
as
have
a-
that video,
Yeah.
that Cheryl made a great
Yeah.
point. If we didn't have that video, we wouldn't be having this type of discussion,
Yeah.
or it'd be a hypothetical, and it'd be he said, she said, because there would not have been the proof there in the pudding.
Right, but I think that Matt Lauer this morning, I was just so angry. He so-called asked the hard questions, but then he said, "How did you feel?" He's trying to get. It just seemed he was
Sensationalism.
going for sympathy.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes, Tamika, oftentimes in these sort of interview sessions, there is not a disclaimer, but there's a point made at the end of the story, whether it's broadcast or print, an opportunity is provided for the victim's family, or we will have the victim's family on, or we've reached out to the victim's family.
Proviso for that.
So that and it's NBC News, and I suspect that is happening, although you can't assume anything these days. But that is challenging. And what's interesting about this situation, I didn't see the interview, but you have other cases where alleged shooters and perpetrators will lay out, if you will, not do the general market. Or the respected news source go to maybe a conservative or an opinionated person that had, I'm going to let Sean Hannity interview me, or I'm going to let,
He probably has.
yeah.
I don't watch Fox News like that. But
or your boy Don Lemon.
Don Lemon, he was golly.
I just want to be. I love to always try to mention Don Lemon when I'm on here
Yeah,
because
thank you.
Brenda gets a rise
I
out of
just
Brenda.
think that he is an incompetent news person. I mean, to me, he always tries to find. I could seeing both sides, but he goes a little too far, especially for a black man. And I have this article on here that says, "Is the policing of black men the new sport for white officers and wannabe cops?" Well, I do know that there are black police officers who kill black suspects too. But
Yeah, there's police brutality everywhere. But the reality is what we have found ourselves doing here on Table Talk and in our kitchen tables, talking about these incidences, and disproportionately, the black people are the victims,
Well,
and
and
that's
too,
where
because
Black Lives Matter, the whole
I have
hashtag issue comes in.
friends like you. I have a son. I have, a brother. We all have some men. We have fathers. We have men in our lives who actually, could be one of these people.
And here's my rule of thumb. I don't think that this is anything new. I think because we live in a 21st century where we have social media, we have iPhones, you can see something repeatedly over and over again. Well, back in the day, we didn't have that. So then it was just the conversation at the church house or at the hair salon or the barber shop. But this has been happening for hundreds of years.
In 1948, here in Detroit, 15-year-old Leon Mosley, a high school student at Miller High School, is shot and fatally killed running away from a Detroit police officer. And the officer shot him. He was accused of stealing a car. The white officer, shot him because he was wearing what was called at that time a bebop tam. And that's what sort of avant-garde jazz, people called them beatniks at the time. That's what people wore. And so you're right, Tamika. It's happened through our experience here in this country, and social media has really brought it to light. We talk about how it has made our life a lot more pleasant we're also finding out that we learn a lot more. Sometimes things we don't want to necessarily
And you
know.
learn it's not just southern states. Like everybody
It can
used to
happen
think
everywhere.
that was confined to the South.
It can happen
Cheryl, you grew up in the South. Did you all have any mysterious deaths?
Yeah. And I don't know if I've ever told you that, but I think I was about 16, I just got my driver's license. I had on my PE uniform. I'm leaving a friend's house, driving
Physical ed.
home. Yeah,
Physical ed.
physical ed. And I get stopped by the police. And they have the bullhorn. They like, get out the car. And I'm like,
What?
what is
To
going
you?
on? Yeah, and I got on like, they used to have the blue shorts with the stripe. I got that on. So I'm getting out. And they're like, well, someone reported, because I was driving a Chevette. Somebody reported a car stolen. Now I know they can run the tags. Do you know they put me down on that hood?
No.
Yeah, like I was a criminal. People were just driving by. I was so humiliated. I was so humiliated. And I was like, you can check, this is my parents' car. So they did that to me. I was out there, it seemed like forever. And then they just came back and was like, oh, it's a mistake. You can go. Now, I don't know what that was, but from that point on, when I shared that with my grandmother, they were involved in NAACP, and I was just getting involved in Operation Push, and it was then that they were saying this is you're a target, and I wasn't in an affluent area. I was in what we call South Memphis, which is the hood, but I'm not sure what that was about, but it was just a regular thing. It was commonplace.
It's one of the reasons why when the 9 of us served as Detroit Charter Revision Commissioners, it was one of the reasons why we were very adamant about continuing to have the civilian police board of commissioners, eyes and ears to look over the shoulders of police officers and hear those cases by people who aren't on the other side of the blue line, people who aren't in that fraternity, if you will, because cops tend to protect cops. Now we have a situation in Detroit that we have duly elected officials who do not have the full duties and powers that's provided to them by the city charter. And it's one of the reasons why people like me are saying, we're talking about Tulsa, Oklahoma today, and we're talking about Cleveland one day, and we're talking about Ferguson, Missouri one day. It's going to happen here in Detroit. Don't think that something like that can't happen in this city,
Right.
and we will not be as prepared in terms of, I'm talking about city residents. We will not be prepared as we should be to be in position to look at these situations, because we had an emergency manager and, quite frankly, a mayor who's gone along for the ride and not given the police commission the full powers that are vested in them. And now 7 of the 11 of them are elected officials. My soapbox for the day, guys.
Well, Ken, it has happened here. It just happened in Ypsilanti. What was that, a couple of weeks ago, where the officers beat the gentleman?
Oh,
really
that was
bad?
Inkster.
Inkster, pardon me, Inkster.
Yeah, well,
so that
that's
was
it.
close to
Yeah.
home.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
God they didn't kill
And
him.
then Highland Park here, I heard he hired him part-time. They fired him from Inkster, and that's what I heard. Well, this saga continues, and and it's the funny thing about the one that happened in South Carolina with the gentleman. That just broke my heart. I couldn't watch it again.
Couldn't watch it at
But
all,
what
yeah.
got me there were some black cops who came upon his body.
You could see that video was and I can't believe, did you see how close he was on that scene?
Yes.
They were so focused on covering that stuff up. They didn't even see that guy. He was right up on them with that camera.
But what got me was the guy told them, said, I filmed you. And they just didn't care. And he went off and so forth.
Yeah.
We're going to see him daily. And I think we need to be prepared as a community. We're talking about it. The 4 of us happen to be African American. We've got to start having this community, this conversation with people that don't look like us, and having real frank conversations about police training, and making sure that law enforcement officials have body cameras and all these other conversations.
Diversity
that have been talked about.
training.
Diversity training.
I
to
mean,
be
real
sure.
training, not just, oh, well, these are black people you got to deal with. I mean, real training.
Yeah.
let's talk about the minimum wage real quick. I saw this week it really kicked up into some more gear. And people started talking about it a lot because that gentleman who owns, what kind of company was that? I can't think of it. But he gave his employees, most of them, he said, your minimum of $70,000 a
Oh
year.
yeah, that
yes.
was that an internet company? I
I
can't remember.
think it was an
yeah.
internet. It
Yeah.
said something to do with software.
It,
the
it wasn't
internet.
McDonald's.
No,
No, it was not.
And that's where I mean that's ground zero, right? I
Yeah.
mean let's be frank about this conversation about $15 an hour. I mean we're talking about employees in the fast food industry and in industries where they're literally making $7 or $8 an hour.
Imagine.
The minimum wage right now in Michigan is $8.50. Through legislation last year, it'll go up to $9.20 in 2017. But $9.20, if you've got a child, still qualifies you under the poverty guideline, and you can't do any more than do oftentimes what the gentleman was doing, going out to Rochester Hills, walking 15, 20 miles because you can't afford a car or you can't afford gas. Or in
Or
this
the
town, you
insurance.
certainly can't
Right.
afford insurance. Absolutely.
Right, right,
The
right.
insurance is more than the car note.
It is. And it's worth more than a car.
Right.
The value of it.
Yeah, I mean, and we're going to talk about that momentarily because sometimes it's $5,000 a year for your insurance,
Yeah.
and you got a
Unbelievable.
$3,000 car.
It's highway
Right.
robbery.
It is highway robbery, but anyway, we'll get into that in a moment. But do you think that McDonald's workers should get $15 an hour?
Absolutely not. I did public relations for McDonald's for 4 years, and so I had an opportunity to see firsthand. I do believe there should be perhaps an increase, maybe to $10, but not for what I've seen amongst 1,000 employees. I don't think the skill set is there. I don't think the customer service level is there. Maybe for some of your senior persons that have been committed to that business where they have a strong pipeline, but just the everyday cashier or whatnot, absolutely no.
The other thing we have to look at, and we tend to look at this issue is taken on national proportions. The other thing I think we have to look at, Tamika, and I agree largely with you, but we also have to look at the cost of living in the region in which you live. If you live in the I-95 corridor in New York or Massachusetts or New Jersey, your cost of living is far different than it would be if you lived in the South or in out west, and not in California, but in some of the more western states. $15 an hour is a lot. And the conversation that we really haven't had around this $15 an hour piece is the reason why people believe they need $15 an hour is because those $15 an hour jobs left because of trade agreements in the 1990s. We spent a previous segment talking about the Clintons, and y'all love Bill Clinton.
No, Bill Clinton
but I'm
made
gonna tell
that
it.
trade. I
but
remember.
NAFTA, GATT, and so that they didn't start the process, but it certainly accelerated the process of manufacturers who did pay $15 an hour. Now they're in Mexico, and so you've got people fighting for a smaller piece of pie. People are going back to work. You talked about retirees. Yeah, I mean it's tough to have to retire and then go back into the job and the work industry and then make $8.50. When you may have worked on a line, making $25 or $30 an hour. And it's doubly tough when you're competing with a 15-year-old who's getting ready to get out of school in 2 months. So we've got to have a larger discussion about, these trade agreements. There's another one up on the table right now that the Obama administration is pushing. And there's several members of Congress who are saying, wait a minute, we remember NAFTA, and you've got to put it in the context, the total context of what's happening, and not just whether, minimum wage is going to be $8 or $10 or $12 or $15.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, some people have talked about training and what's required of the job. The cash register or computer does your adding and subtracting for you.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see. You can tell the difference because I used to work at Burger King, and when we trained, we had to train using money. So that we didn't. You had to be able to add in your head, and I can count the number of times when I go in a place and they'll give me a total, and I'll give them $10.01. and they'll look
that
at it
throws them all
like,
off, Cheryl. Please don't do
what? Yeah, and I was like, they can't count that, because they're so used to. I mean, the job is much easier. I think the back end, preparing of the food is probably the same, but.
And you've got to look at the business perspective. I mean, to me, you raised this and lifted this up. I mean, what if you are an African American small business owner and you are demanded by your state to raise your minimum wage from $8.50 to $15 an hour? Are you priced out of the market, if you will? Will you be able to operate?
Well, we
your
have a
business?
call on the line. We have Theo on the line. Good morning.
Well, happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday.
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 Well, thank you. Did the young lady say that there were pictures on the cash register at the Burger King?
No, when they would have like words on it, so it would say Whopper Junior, and then they would have like a cheese button, it was that kind of thing. But when I worked there, there was no. You could put your money in, but sometimes it wasn't all the time possible. So you had to be able to know how to count money and give it back, because otherwise there would be quick change artists that would come in there and rob you of your money, and you didn't even know it.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
I heard that McDonald's had pictures on the cash register. But anyway, two things you talk about.
It's getting closer and closer to that, Theo, though.
Yeah.
But believe you me, I mean,
Yeah.
it's color coded. It's
Yeah.
numbers.
It probably
I mean,
is.
it's almost like CNC. I mean,
Right.
seriously.
And related to
Believe me.
the elections and the amounts of money that are being used, it seems to me that there is a decided effort to reduce significantly the disposable income of the masses who tend to vote for liberals, okay? When you talk about the minimum wage, I hear that Walmart has increased the hourly wage, but reduced the work hours. Have you looked into that?
It's the old three-card Monte. I mean, it's the sleight of hand thing. You offer an increase in one area, you take back another.
Right.
Now, in 1972, that's what we got with the lottery, right? We've seen it before.
Oh, yeah. But now, when you talk about reducing the disposable income with this 1%, a 1 cent increase in sales tax, that will significantly reduce their disposable income as well. So when you have people doing a community or nationwide campaign like our president did, send me $5, $2, and he amassed enough money to help him campaign, and you're talking about a $40,000 car, and you end up with 1 penny. 1 penny equals $400. That's going in sales tax.
Next week,
Playing on $20,000 car, $200. Family of four, they'll be spending $540 annually. That did income that can be used as campaign contributions.
Theo, next week or the week after, I have someone coming, and it's a black woman who is in favor of the sales tax, and she has the reasoning, and she has to come on the show so that she has to come on the show, so you'll have a chance to ask her some questions about it.
Oh, I will be happy to. Have you all, I didn't mention Biden's name as a candidate.
Joe Biden?
Hillary and Granholm did a job on us by not allowing us to vote for Barack Obama in the primary. We had a caucus, remember, Kenny?
Yeah, well, yeah. As opposed to a state primary.
I resent the fact that I didn't have an opportunity to vote for Barack Obama in the primary here in Michigan.
Well, as I said earlier in the segment, I believe there'll be other candidates. I mean, I just think that right now, in terms of name ID, in terms of the people that we think will get in, Martin O'Malley, some other folks. I mean, Hillary clearly has the name ID, even more in name ID, quite frankly, than Senator Warren. I mean, we've had a great, robust conversation about her. But go along, Grand River and Gratiot and ask people about Senator Warren. They probably have no idea who she is.
Right, and there's a scandal there, with her as well. But I think Biden would be supportive of the communities, nationwide.
Uncle Joe.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Theo.
There's a job for a 73-year-old, right?
There you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
right,
Good
right.
stuff,
That's
Theo.
a
Good
good
stuff.
point.
Good
Great
stuff.
point. Well, we're going to move on because our time is running out, but thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good day. Okay, Al Sharpton's National Action Network is going to stage a hunger strike until Loretta Lynch is confirmed as Attorney General of the United States. You know, she's a black woman, highly qualified, and it has been 5 months.
Ridiculous.
160 days. I mean, President Obama nominated her last November the 8th. It's almost without precedent. Quite frankly, there's no real reason for it. There's certainly a belief that she has anywhere between 48 and 52 votes in the Senate. Senate is a 100-member body. And so it looks like, at least in terms of commitments, she's there. I think the Senate leadership, the Republican Senate leadership, is holding her hostage, just like they tried to hold hostage the Homeland Security funding a month or so ago. I think a lot of this has to do with President Obama's immigration policies and some of the executive orders that he's chosen to make because he can't get a Congress to sometimes not even vote his way, but even take up, or put to a vote initiatives that he wants to do. It's time that they're for up or down vote. I think if they had a vote today, I think that she would be confirmed. This is just hostage. It's wrong. It's terrible. And this is the reason why people hate politics. This is the reason. So when you go out in November and you ask people to vote, they hear about stuff like this. It's like, well, these guys, they're clowns. They're going to do whatever they want to do anyway. This is the reason why people don't like politics.
Absolutely. I agree with you. It's just a shame. It's just.
And I don't believe that a hunger strike by Al Sharpton's group that
Well, Al is the last person that needs a hunger strike.
They say let it
like
starve.
starve. I mean, if
Al's
you're
head
shooting
is
black
like
men
this,
left
and his
and
body's
right,
like that.
do you think folks actually care if these folks go on a hunger strike?
No.
I mean, so that's not
No.
going
It
to
has
put
to
any
be
resolve to
something.
the issue.
It has to be something that is related to some money or economics.
Right.
Because people hear money. When you cut that money off, you don't have to say a word.
Right.
It's about that dollar.
Or
Right.
if the constituency,
Right.
start blowing up those phones, getting on social media, and holding those legislators and,
Accountable.
senators accountable and asking why. Why has it been 150 plus days?
Here's the thing: in Michigan, we're blessed in this regard. We have two senators that want to vote for Ms. Lynch, but everybody calls Atlanta Little Detroit. And Atlanta's got Republican U.S. senators, and everybody in Atlanta should be calling their senators and saying, there are only 100 of these people. I mean, it's a select group, and so that's the body. It's not the House where there's a lot more members and there's a lot more ground to cover. Everybody knows somebody in Georgia. Everybody knows somebody in Texas.
Many people.
Everybody knows somebody in Florida, and so that's all it's about. Call your senator, your U.S. senator, and say, put up for a vote the Loretta Lynch
You will
nomination.
not get my vote.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Not get
just
my
as simple
vote.
as that.
It's just ridiculous. And like you say, it's it's something that's really, really ridiculous. And they're doing it on purpose. Didn't you all say
Yeah.
that? Mhm.
And see, that's the amazing thing too about America. So when you go to the best of schools, you receive the best of training. And so when you go in for a position like this and they still, hold you up, it's, so whether you the brother walking down the street with your pants sagging or you went to the Ivy League school, it's like you're still not good enough. So it's, what should a person do?
I don't know if this is appropriate, but my grandfather told me a
Quick-
joke
quick
years
joke.
ago. He
Quick-
said, "What do you call a black man with a degree, a car, and a job?"
I know.
And y'all know the answer.
It's the
Don't matter
N-word.
what you got,
N-word.
you still gonna be that to them.
Well,
To some people, I'll
ladies
say it
and
like that.
gentlemen,
So
time is up. Time is up. I just hate that. But I had to get that on about the intellectual property because I think that is so
Great
important.
conversation for our community.
Because so many people, especially black people, get ripped off. So listen, everybody, we'll see you next week. I have a great show scheduled, both of them great. Thank you all, Tamika, Cheryl, and Ken. with your insight, Mr. Coleman.
And my gray hair.
Political thing. I'm
Yes.
I'm still looking for that gray hair. One day I'm gonna get your wife on Table Talk too. All right, everybody. We'll see you then, and thank you for joining us.